Atheism. Oh, the despair of it. Yes, don't you feel it too? We must be the toughest people on the face of the earth to withstand something so terrible. Obviously, that's what we're going to be talking about in this video, but not just that. There are several other topics addressed here before we get to that one. So the video I'm responding to here is called The Utter Despair of Atheism, and it begins with one of those AZ quotes generated images that every time I see it screams cheap and low effort. In this case of Ricky Gervais's mug, saying the existence of God is not subjective, he either exists or he doesn't, it's not a matter of opinion, you can have your own opinions, but you can't have your own facts. Okay, great, well that sounds true enough. To be honest, I'm not sure if this is presented in agreement or disagreement because this never comes up again in the video. So that's one point already dealt with, I suppose. Next point.
Contrary to popular belief, atheism is not the position wherein a man lacks belief in a god or gods, but an active belief in the non-existence of God.
That's an interesting statement when you think about it, because what he's saying is, contrary to popular belief, the definition of the word atheism is something different from what people think it is. But what is a definition? It's a description of how people use the word. Popular belief defines the word. So this is basically saying, contrary to how this word is actually used, it really means this niche, lesser used definition. Look, I guess it's all well and good to be a linguistic prescriptivist and insist that everyone has to use the term the way it was used in the 19th century, but nothing about your personal preference on this matter means people have to agree with you or go along with you. And, you know, I always found this Christian insistence on this preferred definition of theirs kind of funny because of how pointless it is. Because the fact is, it doesn't matter if you like or dislike somebody's word choice, somebody's chosen label. It doesn't matter if you think it's accurate or inaccurate, at least not with regard to the actual content of the discussion. You can object on linguistic grounds about the words themselves, but it doesn't change anything about the actual disagreement between the two people. No, when you're talking about ideas, what matters is that you understand what your opposition is trying to say with the words that they choose. If you're confused, you ask. If they clarify how they're using the word and you disagree with how they're using the word, you can point it out. You can say, I don't like how you're using that word, but then you're still going to go on to talk about what they actually think. Now, I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to imply by bringing this up. It's a little bit unclear. Maybe you don't intend this as any sort of argument about what other people really think based on the labels that they choose. But just briefly, I want to mention that sometimes you do see people who very clearly want to use this as an argument. They say this kind of thing to try to expose people who call themselves atheists, to say, look, this person doesn't really just lack belief, but in fact believes there is no God, because look at this definition I've chosen. Or at least they try to corral the discussion into a God versus no God frame that may not be agreed upon by the opposition, which I guess is intended to muddy the water. They basically tell the non-believer, regardless of what you say you mean, or what you say you think, you're using a word that I define a different way from you, and therefore you are how I define it. In other words, I could define theist as being a pineapple, and now all theists are pineapples. Yes, contrary to popular belief, theists really are pineapples. Literally, they're fruit that if I were king of the earth, I would insist must be on every pizza. It's an unbelievably poor argument. Now, again, I don't know if that's exactly what you're going for here. I kind of think it might be, but because it's not entirely clear, I'm not going to accuse you of it. So I'll just mention that generally as something I find funny and move on.
According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, atheism is the critique or denial of metaphysical beliefs in God or spiritual beings.
Which is an absolutely terrible definition, honestly. God or spiritual beings? No, because spiritual beings are not necessarily gods. We're only talking about gods. There's plenty of atheists who believe in stuff like ghosts. Spiritual beings are in no way off the table. Look, at least the belief in no gods definition is a way people have actually used the word. Who uses it like this? Also, you had to go out of your way to find this, didn't you? This is by no means the first result. You got the AI overview that says absence of belief in deities, but I don't know, your video is a couple of years old, so that might not have been there. Then you got Merriam-Webster, lack of belief, Wikipedia, rejection of belief, Cambridge, the fact of not believing, a couple of more sort of partisan sources, and then Britannica. But of course, yes, you will find people defining atheism as denial of God's existence, or even more clearly, the belief that God does not exist. Especially in philosophy or just more academic sources, you'll see that more often. That's all well and good. I'm just not really sure what the point of bringing it up here is. I guess, charitably, I could assume that you're just trying to constrain the scope of the discussion.
It proposes positive disbelief rather than mere suspension or lack of belief. Atheism is not merely a lack of belief in, but an attack on God.
An attack on God. Okay, that's going a little bit far for any of these definitions. Maybe cool it down like 10%.
Only where God has been seen as real and personal can much energy be generated in the cause of rebellion against him, as Harold O.J. Brown suggests.
I guess I could see that being true. If you're going to attack God, you probably have to believe there's a God, right? But it would be a highly idiosyncratic definition to say that's what an atheist is. Basically, at this point, you're defining an atheist as someone who says there's no God, but secretly believes there is one and wants to fight him, which is so unusual and so non-present in essentially any source proposing any definition that, well, have fun using words weird, I guess. Enjoy the confusion that brings. Speaking of confusion, I think that Christians who think this kind of thing really are confused. They seem to have a very difficult time distinguishing arguments against them and their ideas from attacks on God himself. Buddy, I'm arguing with you. You're not God.
As early as Epicurus, there have been attempts to debunk the supernatural. But since the early 21st century, a new pattern of atheism has emerged. Departing from their skeptical forebears, the new atheists espouse a dogma that differs in both tone and content. Religion is said to be not only wrong, but evil. They do not just denounce belief in God, but respect for belief in God. Many atheists claim that killings and religious conflicts are direct and undeniable proof that religion is bad for society, and use events like the terror attack of 9/11 as examples.
So I think it's relatively clear what kind of new atheist stuff he's talking about. Stuff like Christopher Hitchens' God is Not Great, which did have a lot of this kind of stuff in it. Moralistic stuff about how religion is bad for society, stuff about crusades and things like that. And I do think 9/11 was a significant factor in why we saw that wave of new atheism. And it did come up quite a bit in, for example, God is Not Great. I read that one in like 2011 or 12 or something. And I do remember it was a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't know, even then it didn't really hit for me. Like, it's not the kind of thing that I'm all that much interested in. I'm much more interested in who's factually correct, who's not, how do we decide, and of course, what do we do when we haven't decided. That's the kind of stuff I find a lot more interesting, and so I find it kind of boring when this other stuff comes up, which unfortunately it's about to a little bit more right now, because he's upset when people bring up bad events and blame religion for them, and so that's what he's going to do from the other side, I guess out of spite or something.
But the people who claim these things somehow severely overlook the tens of millions killed by atheist regimes even in the last century alone.
And then you show a whole bunch of communists. Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Mao. I feel like there might be a more conspicuous and salient unifying factor between these people than atheism. Yeah, but no. It was clearly the ideology of atheism that led to mass starvation and the purging of political opponents. Yeah, that sounds like a historically informed position. Look how much better the Christians are at history than the new atheists were, you guys.
77 million in communist China, 62 million in the Soviet Union, and 21 million non-battle killings by the Nazis.
Oh, so it's not even just the communists, it's the Nazis too now. What makes this guy think Nazism was a fundamentally atheistic ideology? Well, I'm sure he got it somewhere, but nowhere very reliable. It's so amazingly historically stupid to blame the majority, I guess, of 20th century violence and death on atheism. Yeah, totally fair assessment. Obviously, look it up in any history book and you're gonna see it was an atheist jihad. That's just what it was.
This is many times more deaths than all religious wars put together in all centuries of human history.
Well, I'm curious what would happen, honestly, if you pitted all those, just any killings done by a supposedly atheistic regime, one supposedly run by atheists and favorable towards atheism, against all the killing ever done by a theistic regime. All regimes run by religious people that were favorable towards religion. If we're doing this absolute nonsense, then let's do it properly. Compare those numbers. Well, I guess from what I've seen, the tactic will be just to redefine regimes as atheistic until we get whatever result we want, right? We can play stupid games all day, but I know that if you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, so how about we just move on?
Although a large number of atheists accept atheism without good reason, a good number of them affirm atheism on the basis of several arguments.
Fair. I mean, if we're operating on the strong definition of atheism, sure, there are plenty of people who will accept that without very good reasons, just like with anything else. If we're going with the attack on God definition, though, well, in that case, I might as well just quit the video, actually, because that's ridiculous.
These arguments differ from one another, but they are the standard arguments employed by the atheist apologists.
Well, that's good to hear that they differ from one another, because if they didn't, you'd only have one. And that'd be a little glum, wouldn't it?
On the strength of these arguments, atheists deny the existence of God. These objections, however, have been adequately answered many times by a great number of different Christian philosophers and theologians.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
For the sake of time, I'm not going to be able to answer these questions now, but I plan to make a future video briefly responding to these arguments.
Great, so we're not going to cover them. We're just going to kind of mention that there are some. That's fine by me. I'm real happy about that. A lot less to deal with.
It is fallacious to argue, as some atheists do, insisting on the presumption of atheism.
The presumption of atheism. Unclear statement. Clarify.
To suggest that the atheist does not have the burden of proof because atheism is the lack of belief in a god is in a sense refusing to take part in playing the game but nevertheless insisting on getting the prize at the end.
The prize at the end. Unclear statement. Clarify.
Not to mention how we already went over how atheism is not just the lack of belief in God, but the active rejection of and attack on him.
Hey, could you get your words out of the way? You're ruining a perfectly good drone shot. Why you gotta dump this crap all over the beach? Anyway, so you have a problem with people saying atheism is a lack of belief in God. Okay, well, regardless, when people tell you that's what they mean when they describe themselves as atheists, that is what they mean. If you're really hung up on wanting them to use a different word, then politely suggest it. See if they care. And the same thing goes, I guess, if they tell you that by atheist, they mean that they believe there's no God. Because again, that's apparently not your definition, right? Your definition is they believe there's a God and attack him. So once again, politely suggest to them that they change the word that they use to describe themselves and see if they care.
Atheism is a claim to know something, just as much as theism.
Your typo is funny. It says something. Ha 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 ha. You know what, though? I appreciate the typos. It's representative of humanity, which is increasingly absent from videos nowadays. I'd rather have a person writing something crappy and full of typos than have not a person writing everything.
Therefore, it can neither claim presumption when evidence is equal, nor claim it does not have the burden of proof.
By claim presumption, I assume you mean something like claim to be the default position. I don't know why you feel the need to reinvent the wheel on the terminology, but fine.
Some atheists may say that the burden of proof always goes to the affirmative proposition, i.e., God exists, as opposed to the negative proposition, God does not exist.
Well, I can't disagree with what you've said. Some atheists may say that. Those atheists must, of course, be flogged. It's the atheist law.
But then an example of self-refutation occurs.
Yeah, I really don't care about this. This is all silly anyway. If everything was on the affirmative side and nothing was on the negative side, then the negative side would never have to show up to formal debates, would they?
The proposition, the burden of proof falls on the affirmative position, is itself an affirmative position, so requires proof in itself.
You know, I've been thinking about ways to pick through this, and I realized, why am I thinking about this? I already agree with you on this issue. This isn't something I think, so I really don't have the interest.
Furthermore, atheists assert many affirmative statements without proof.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they do. They're humans. Humans do that. About all kinds of different things. You're not always in I'm gonna prove something mode. This statement here applies to basically everyone who speaks.
For example, the universe is either eternal or came into existence uncaused.
I could choose to take these as things you're saying atheists in general say, but you know what? I think it's more fun if I take it to mean that there are atheists who assert this stuff, leaving open the possibility of others who don't. So yeah, sure. Somebody asserted this, yeah.
Non-living matter evolved into living cells by pure chance and undirected chemistry.
Oh yeah, somebody probably said that, yeah.
Complex specified information arose without intelligence.
Complex specified information, yeah, big time atheist term. They're notorious for tossing that one out. Christians hate it. Ugh, weird atheism terms, ew.
Design features arose without a designer.
Right, yeah, design features, another huge atheist talking point.
Moral sensibilities arose out of amoral matter, etc.
Yeah, well no, actually, it says arouse out of amoral matter. But close enough. One letter can't change the meaning all that much.
Atheism takes all the above on faith, but blind faith.
Wait, atheism does? Okay, so unfortunately, no, this is not just some atheist somewhere sometime said this stuff. No, these are baked into atheism as a worldview. I'm not in the mood.
It takes greater faith to be an atheist.
Oh, you're really trying to hit all the catchphrases here, aren't you?
Atheism is a religion without God.
Wow. It's got to be the least religion-y religion I've ever seen. Yeah, like I said, I'm just not in the mood for this. Get on with it. Let's talk about something more interesting.
Faith without reason and a journey without a destination.
A journey without a destination? What is the journey? Is this you complaining that life doesn't come with a prize at the end? Okay, well, I don't care. You may care, but that doesn't really matter, does it? Go do your Christianity. Have fun. We'll worry about how much this matters to us. Thank you for your concern, but it's really not needed.
An atheist is not a person without beliefs, but one who upholds a variety of beliefs.
Yeah, obviously. Again, atheists are human. Humans have beliefs. They have things they think are true. They're not part of atheism, except the God one, but atheists can hold them. It's not like atheists are restricted to atheism. They can think other things.
The only way for the atheist to be absolutely certain that there is no God is for the atheist to know everything about reality.
Yeah, no kidding. That goes for literally anyone on any issue. That's the problem with the concept of absolute certainty. That's why it's absurd, is you have to be omniscient to be justified in feeling like you have it. This also applies to belief in God, by the way. To be justified in feeling absolutely certain that you're correct, you would also need to be omniscient. And this is why I reject absolute certainty as an absurdity. It doesn't seem to make any sense, and nobody seems able to explain to me how it does make any sense.
He must know all facts about reality and existence, meaning he must have knowledge only God could possess.
Sure, and an atheist doesn't have that, but nor does a Christian. And the Christian can say, oh, but I'm leaning on God's omniscience. Okay, how do you know that with absolute certainty? See, this isn't about God's knowledge, it's about yours. And you're limited, so absolute certainty makes no sense.
He must be omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent.
Sorry, the atheist needs to know all facts. Therefore, he needs to know everything, be everywhere, and be able to do literally anything? No, of course not the last two. Why are you tossing those in? Just for fun?
In which case the atheist must become God in order to prove that there is no God.
With absolute certainty. But who's interested in absolute certainty? That's not how humans operate. We operate on best guesses based on available information. You could say maybe a little rational deduction too, but I think that falls into the first category. Why do we think rational deduction works? Best guess based on available information.
He has become the very God he is seeking to disprove.
Okay, I'm sure you feel like you got a big winner here, but I'm rejecting a lot of what you seem to think needs to be going on.
But the atheist says there is no God, so how could he argue his position?
Oh, never mind. I thought the last part was the punchline. I guess this one's the big punchline. All right. Oh no, you got me.
Even Einstein himself said that he knew less than 0.5% of all there is to know.
Well, yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, he wasn't really famous for being exceptionally learned about a large array of topics, was he? He's not really famous for having an encyclopedic memory of all different fields and winning on Jeopardy. Why are we implying that he had an exceptionally large amount of general knowledge? But yes, of course, the point stands that no one human really knows all that much.
Even if we were to be generous and say the atheist knew 2% of all knowledge, is it possible for God to exist outside of this 2% of knowledge? The answer is logically and obviously yes.
Are you still banging on about the absolute certainty thing? How big is the group of people you think this really applies to?
So then how could the atheist say with certainty that there is no God?
The same way the Christian does, I assume. They just kind of feel like they're certain. It's no more or less reasonable in either case. I would say the amount reasonable it is 0, personally.
Is it any wonder that the Bible says in Psalm 14:1, the fool says in his heart, there is no God?
That has nothing to do with anything you just said. There's no reference to absolute certainty there. You're just mashing stuff you've heard together. Doesn't matter if it makes any sense, just keep on mashing.
While speaking at a university, Dr. Steve Kumar encountered an atheistic student declaring that there was no God.
Oh, one of those classic I was speaking on a campus stories. I wonder how this will go.
He asked, are you absolutely sure there is no God?
And the student said, yeah, obviously, I'm absolutely sure there's no God, and I hate him.
The student replied, yes.
Is that the student? It is, isn't it? Yeah, he looks like a little atheist fedora-tipping prick with his smug look.
Kumar responded, you have absolute knowledge to be absolutely sure that there is no God.
And the student said, oh, the ownage, you've owned me. How could you?
The student replied, no, I don't.
Let me tell you exactly what you want to hear and help this conversation go exactly to plan, Mr. Professor Kumar, sir. I trust that when you retell this, you will not change a single detail.
Kumar responded, then you are not absolutely sure there is no God?
Oh, got him! He got him!
The student responded, I believe there is no God.
I backed down like a chump. And that's how you do it. That's all it takes. Christian for the win. Every time. Man, these conversations are so easy in every single one of these stories. Too bad it only seems to work in these stories. That's unfortunate. You must just not be doing it right the rest of the time. Maybe the wrong inflections or something. You gotta figure out where the problem is there so you can get these kind of victories in the non-story context too. Then you'll be golden. Can't be that hard.
So again, there we have it. Atheism is a belief based on faith.
That statement has nothing to do with the story you just told. Nothing about that story implied what the person's belief is based on. Did you not listen to your own story?
An atheist is not one who has no faith. He is one who has no faith in God, but rather puts his faith and trust in the belief that there is no God.
You're saying that as if it were established by something, but nothing you've said established it. Probably something there was meant to, but it didn't.
Atheists believe that the only thing after we die is nothingness. Our minds are erased, our consciousness ceases to exist.
Should I again take atheists here to mean some atheists? Because otherwise you're wrong. I've known a number of atheists who believed in reincarnation, for example.
As I briefly went over earlier, atheists believe that we are here by pure chance.
No? You know, I know you have this thing of not listening to atheists when they tell you what they think or don't think, but it'd be nice if you would sometimes. It would make you look less dopey than when you just make things up based on complete ignorance.
If we were not placed in this world by a god, but rather were evolved from primordial pond scum over billions of years, then we lack purpose on this earth.
Oh no. I know I should say more than that, but I'm losing interest.
Our lives would lack meaning, and we might as well not even be here at all.
I did a supporter exclusive recently. I don't know how recently as of publishing this, but it was about this guy who said atheists just want to find some excuse to convince themselves God doesn't exist so they can calzone themselves without being afraid they'll go to hell. It was bad and dumb. Probably more bad and dumb than you expect based on that description, which is remarkable.
The atheists responding to this may say that in the same way you don't stop watching a movie halfway through because it will end eventually, you don't just end your life because you'll die eventually. And to this I would agree.
Huh. I'm actually surprised. I didn't expect you to have any ability to understand other people's views, but there's a little bit. It's not going to last beyond this moment, of course, but I'll take what I can get.
But then this position implies that while we may not have purpose on this earth, we can make the most of it by indulging in all the pleasures life has to offer.
It's weird how you phrase that. We may not have purpose on this earth. No, what you mean is we don't have a purpose for having been placed on Earth as a species. But there is purpose on Earth. Purpose is a human concern. It's about how we contextualize our actions. So having purpose is not a problem. That's a normal thing regardless of religion or theism or any of that. Of course, religions love to hijack it and try to pretend like they came up with the concept in the first place, and try to make you feel like without them, your life must be interpreted as a purposeless void. But that's a self-serving lie.
But as I went over in a previous video, we live in a world of plenty but are joyless. Why is it that today we live in abundance, able to have anything we want, but depression rates are rising, loneliness rates are rising, and calzone rates are rising?
Well, I think there are many, many factors to that. I don't think that's a simple answer. But in the context of the abundance thing, I think a lot of people get themselves into this rut where they get up, they commute to work, they put on a fake smile for the birthday party for some dickhead they don't care about. They commute back, get yelled at by a drug addict on the train, they go to sleep. They pay someone $3,000 a month to have a cardboard box stacked on top of other cardboard boxes where they can live. They can afford junk food, video games, and that's all well and good. But it becomes this cycle of tedium. There's no grand project. There's no big adventure. What qualifies as ambition is like getting a raise to a job with more work, maybe a bigger cubicle, another 10K a year, a bigger house with a bigger mortgage. Accomplishment for a lot of people is largely within this predefined structure. Someone else told you, here are the steps you're going to climb, and you just kind of trudge up the steps you were pointed to. And in the background, there's this constant low-level fear and stress of, what if I lose my job tomorrow? Some other person can send me right back to the start tomorrow and I'll have to do it all over again. Look, I agree with you completely that having plenty of food and a big house and all the entertainment you could ever want does not make for a fulfilling life, not in and of itself. It is nice to have, but not if that's all you have. I think there's a lot more to it as well. I think a lot of people have very little feeling of control. A lot of problems seem externally imposed and therefore not solvable by the person themselves. People have trouble seeing how they can change their own lives through their own personal effort. They also lack a real community that helps them with that. Whatever they do, or at least think of doing, seems like it's going to lead to just more of the same. People don't feel like they can meaningfully improve their circumstances and shape the world around them in creative and self-driven ways that make it more how they would like to see it. A lot of the time they're outright banned from even doing it. Learned helplessness, ennui, which ironically in some ways I think results from a lack of certain kinds of struggle and risk and also suffering. In the right context, those things can create a feeling of drive and accomplishment and power that can really be helpful. So in other words, yeah, a lot of people do in fact lack a sense of purpose in the regular earthly sense, because either they haven't really understood how to develop it or they're somehow prevented from doing so. I don't think my little list here is exhaustive by any means, and it won't apply to everybody feeling negative about their life, but I think these are some of the more prominent factors in a heap of about 1,000 other things. Now, I'm sure you're going to ignore absolutely all of this and simply blame it on atheism. It doesn't really explain why Christians have these same problems. Maybe their religion helps a little bit, I don't know, comforting lies to help you cope, but it doesn't seem to work as well as people would have you believe.
If there is no God and we have no purpose, the best thing we could reasonably do is chase happiness.
Sure, I guess. That doesn't sound like a bad goal.
To quote a fellow Christian YouTuber, happiness is the primary motivator for doing anything in life for atheists. They may chase money, they may chase women, they may chase food. All of these things will not bring them happiness. Instant gratification activities may bring temporary pleasure, but after you binge eat your whole fridge, do you really feel good about it?
Well, no, that's why I don't do it. Again, I agree with you here. If you live a life full of a bunch of instant gratification and nothing else, that's an amazing recipe for making yourself extremely miserable as time goes on. This is why I'd recommend having a longer view, and when you're young, getting your priorities straight so that you don't regret it when you're older. If the point is to pursue happiness, and this kind of behavior doesn't tend to make people happy, why do you think people would not realize that just because they're atheists? Atheists are as capable as anyone else of realizing how counterproductive extreme overeating or blowing out your dopamine receptors can be to happiness.
If we are here by pure chance and everything will eventually crumble and die, then everything we could ever do is pointless, meaningless, and in vain.
No, it isn't. Not within the context of your life, it isn't. You just made the movie analogy. If the movie ends at some point, does that somehow objectively mean you have to interpret everything in it as pointless and meaningless? No.
If everything the atheist does is to attain happiness, but at the same time all actions are vanity, then what is the point of doing anything at all?
Well, I reject your premise. You're still stuck in this mindset that you're so concerned about the movie ending that you don't enjoy the movie. Look, you said before that you agree that there's no reason to end your life just because your life will end. Okay, well, likewise, there's no reason to sit around moping about some lack of transcendent purpose or some reason why your species was originally put on the earth. The way Christians think about this stuff is so incomprehensible to me. They're so hung up on this eternity stuff that they can't seem to just chill out and value what's right in front of them right now.
Now, I want you to imagine a Christian and an atheist. The Christian believes that God is real, and by placing his faith in and following Christ, he will be saved. The atheist believes there is no God and that everything is meaningless. Now, if the Christian is right, he gains everything, but the atheist suffers an eternity in hell. If the atheist is right, they both cease to exist, yet the Christian lived a fulfilling life, rejecting the temptations of the world, rejecting the desires of his flesh, while the atheist saw no point in this and indulged in everything he wanted, leading to a depressing, alone, undisciplined, and unfulfilling life.
I find this fascinating. I'm not going to rehash any of the Pascal's wager stuff. I'm not really interested in the hell discussion. It doesn't really seem to have much relevance to what we're talking about here anyway. What I'm interested in is the way he presents the Christian and the atheist way of approaching life. The Christian has all this self-restraint and rejects the temptations of the flesh and so on. In other words, refuses instant gratification and has a fulfilling life. Life itself feels fulfilling because of, if we're going to put it in more secular terms, not engaging in mindless hedonism, maybe having a low time preference approach to life, and therefore life feels fulfilling. Well, the atheist goes, I don't see any point in that, does everything the Christian didn't do and gets depressed and ends up alone, has no discipline and feels unfulfilled. Now, obviously, it is unbelievably moronic to just assert that this is the atheist lifestyle. That's insane. And of course, on the flip side, to assert that Christians don't engage in any of that. No, Christians all live like ascetic monks. We all know this. Please. But I don't expect this guy to know anything. So the more interesting thing is if living with some kind of restraint leads to an actually more fulfilling feeling life in the here and now, not, oh, I'll get heaven later, so I'm okay with not doing the thing now. No, it makes life more fulfilling now in the moment. It makes you happier, is the assertion. If this is so evident, as he claims it is, why does he think the atheist wouldn't be able to just look at that and go, oh, that works better, I'll do that? I mean, supposedly the whole point of the atheist's life is to pursue happiness, that's the claim. So why would an intelligent person not be able to just look at what's working for someone else and implement it? If the premise is correct, and what the Christian is doing works so well, it's not like atheists, by definition, will just refuse to do it because a Christian's doing it. This whole view of how people work is so poorly thought through.
It is distressing if God does not exist because it implies that man stands alone in space, in a meaningless universe without a spiritual home.
Well, you find it depressing. What the hell do I care about space? I'm not in space. I'm on Earth. I'm not alone here. I don't even care if there's people 100 miles away, let alone in space. Having said that, though, obviously the lack of a god does not imply humans are alone in space.
Atheism offers no answer to the fundamental metaphysical questions regarding the reality of the universe or the genesis of human personality.
Very weirdly phrased. I don't really know what you want there, but yeah, I get that you're a Christian, and so the thought of not being a Christian freaks you out. But I'm not a Christian. I don't go into life with Christian expectations, so I don't care. The Utter Despair of Atheism was the title, but the only despair you're describing is basically just not being a Christian. Well, that's not a problem. I don't live my life wishing for all the Christian things to be true. I don't even see the appeal. So I guess we just have to agree to disagree on this one. And with that, I guess that's that. So thank you for watching. If you would, before you go, please do give the video a like and click subscribe if you haven't. Enormous thanks as always to every single one of my supporters. You keep this thing rolling. Appreciate you. Email list, early access, list.logicked.com, and I'll see you next time.